Welcome to the Alex Jones Show on this Sunday, May 17th, 2015. I'm David Knight. I'll be your host. We're also going to have Paul Joseph Watson joining us in the second hour. In the next segment, Alex is going to be joining us with a special report. He's got a special report about, essentially, we've been under a lot of attack lately, and he's going to break down some of the more ridiculous attacks for you. We are over the target, and when that happens, we get a lot of attacks. I'm also going to go over, there's a lot of news that's on InfoWars today. Listen to some of these headlines. UK Prime Minister David Cameron proclaims it's not enough that you follow the law, you must love Big Brother. Listen to what he actually said. Here's the quote. This is from David Cameron. For too long, we have been a passively tolerant society, saying to our citizens, as long as you obey the law, we'll leave you alone. What's he going to do for people? What's he not going? How is he going to change this now? I don't really understand the contract as it's going to be changed in the UK. You know, we have contract law, not a dictatorship in the West. Supposedly, we have contracts like the Constitution, like laws that are written by our legislatures, things that recognize the fact that when you obey the law, you are left alone by the government. That's been the contract. That's been the fundamental contract traditionally in English and American law for centuries. So now he's saying for far too long we've done that. We've just been passively tolerant of people who obey the law, but that's not enough. We're not going to leave you alone if you obey the law. And now a lot of people tweeted this out and said, as Glenn Greenwald said, this is really the mentality of Her Majesty's government. It's now not enough for you to obey. You must love Big Brother. Quite frankly, I don't see anything in that about loving Big Brother. I see them analyzing every aspect of your life, as we've seen the NSA do, looking at your social media, looking at your metadata from your phone company, following everywhere you go, tracking and taxing you, and constantly analyzing you to see if you are doing something unusual. I mean, that's the whole aspect of mastering the human domain. You know, people are talking about Jade Helm 15. That's what concerns me, is the aspect of the surveillance state. The idea that they are going to analyze everything that you do in a pre-crime type of way. They say they're not looking for anybody that's committing any crimes. It fits perfectly with what Cameron is saying in the UK, because this is being brought out, rolled out in all the countries at the same time, just like the TPP. They're saying we're not looking for criminals, we're just looking for things that are unusual. And then we'll decide if that's something we should be worried about. Well, let's look at some of the things that they're doing now. We've got a North Carolina woman that's being evicted from her own land because she's living in a tent. Why is she living in a tent? When she was hooked up to the septic system of the local county, they dumped tons of raw sewage onto her property. She disconnected that. They tried to clean that up, and she refuses to hook back up to that. She wants to stay on her own septic. She's got a tent now where they've damaged her property, and they say, no, you can't do that unless you are a licensed campground. That's what they're telling her locally. We're seeing that kind of tyranny everywhere. Look at the mandatory vaccines. That's now taken another step in California. The state bill that's there has passed the Senate. It is moving on to the House. People there need to be awake, and that's not the only state, unfortunately, where this is happening. This is happening everywhere. Changing the term of informed consent, taking away our ability, our rights as human beings to look at what we're being given, to have a discussion with our doctor, to see what we agree with, what's appropriate for us, and make those decisions. No, they change the language. They say it's no longer informed consent. It is a personal belief exemption. It's just what you think. It doesn't really matter. We're the ones who have all knowledge. We'll tell you what's good for you. And you don't have any rights. You just have the exemptions that we give you. We're going to take those away. I think it's interesting to see how they use language. You know, for the longest time, we've seen Democrats talking about being pro-choice when the only choice they wanted to give you was whether or not you were going to abort your child. They certainly are not going to give you a choice about what you put into your child, how you medicate or treat your child. Stay with us. Right after the break, we've got a special report from Alex Jones. We'll be right back.
My friends, my fellow freedom lovers worldwide, we're broadcasting worldwide on this live edition of the Alex Jones Show, Sunday, May 17th, 2015. Now, there's a lot we're going to be breaking down today, and we're going to cut back in a moment to the studio and David Knight live, breaking down the latest news and information. And then I'll return tomorrow, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. with a weekday broadcast. But the first thing I want to talk about today is why are the people and why are governors and senators and House members not trusting Obama Homeland Security and the leadership of the Pentagon when they promise that there's nothing nefarious with military operations like Jade Helm. It's because we live in a climate where we've been lied to on so many fronts over and over again, and we've seen Washington engaged in dictatorial power grabs at a monumental level across the board. And we see a dinosaur mainstream media that continues to arrogantly say they've never lied, they've never deceived, and they don't work for special interest, and that anyone that questions the official narrative is a tyrant. Now, before I get into some of these latest lies, let's just talk about the new Mad Max movie that I've now had a chance to see so that we can critique that. It's okay if one movie out of 10 has an anti-male, anti-family, woman cult worldview. It's that every major movie coming out now, and the video game industry and others admit that there is a directive by the suits, by the old men that run it, to make it about a women against men paradigm. And in this movie, all the men are genocided by the women because men are inherently bad and women are inherently good. And it's every new movie that comes out where they advertise it's some movie with a guy, because women and men like to go watch heroes. That's just a fact worldwide. They lie and say it's a movie about guys fighting, and you go see it, and it is a movie about how men are inherently bad. Listen, I'm not in a war against women. It's divide and conquer by the globalists. That's simple. They're dividing us along every line, and there's so much propaganda. It's come out now last week that the NFL is paid every time they make a touchdown to cut to troops in the audience to create a Pavlovian event so you associate your team winning or a touchdown with troops. And my point is, just be aware of the propaganda. I'm not against women having their rights. I'm not against troops. I am saying be aware of the manipulation and the control that's taking place, and realize that in the name of a lot of good things that are pushed, we're being sold a lot of bad things. Let's go over here to the computer and let's look at some of these latest news articles on this Sunday edition. Arctic ice shelf could crumble, says NASA study. They never even develop new lies. They know the public doesn't know how ice shelves work, how glaciers work, north and south, the Arctic, the Antarctic. And when Al Gore got his Nobel Prize in 2007 for his film An Inconvenient Truth, which has been proven to be a total fraud, saying that polar bears can't swim and stuff like that, when their numbers are up fivefold since 1955. Look it up. Just type in polar bear numbers explode worldwide, from Russia to the north of Canada. And he got up there and said that within 7 years, we're going to see this particular ice cap totally melt. Well, we're going to show you the satellite shots of the Arctic and Antarctic, where they've both gotten bigger since 2007 in that speech. The truth is, rain and snow fall on them, they build up, and then they slough off and flow to the sea. They always have. You can read Roman accounts of being, in the north of Europe on the coastlines exploring and seeing mountains collapsing into the ocean. I mean, this goes on. Polar bears are the greatest land animal swimmer. They don't drown. Penguins are not all dying in the south. And I assure you this is what glaciers do. Al Gore's been proven to be wrong. We're going to show you some of the satellite images in a moment from NASA. Now NASA has come out, meaning they're politicalized scientists. So we don't send humans to space anymore. That's all for robots, so we just get dictated to by NASA. That the ocean's going to rise 11 feet, and basically there'll be water in Austin, Texas in most areas. I mean, just crazy made-up bull if one piece of the southern Antarctic glacier breaks off. So let's go over some of these articles. This is Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera was here in town interviewing me last week. They looked at me straight face and said, there is no gun control. There is no move to take guns in America. You're making it up, Mr. Jones. The piece airs next week. And I said, no, there are gun bans in all these cities. The Brady campaign says they want our guns. And they go, no, they don't. Just like they're going along with the lie that the Arctic ice shelf could crumble, says NASA study, and we'll be under, all this water. Myth of Arctic meltdown. Stunning satellite images show ice cap is thicker and covers 1.7 million square kilometers. Look, and it's the same thing for the south. This is the Arctic ice shelf. This is 2012, and you can see this is 2014. Much bigger, with the entire northern passage for ships completely blocked off. I mean, that is a fact that he said that by 2013 it would be completely gone, and it's now the biggest ever recorded by satellites. Here it is, CNN. Study raises concerns over big, rapidly thinning Antarctic ice. And they first said this back in March, but it was back on TV today, so I went and looked it up. Okay, let's continue. Here's Al Gore saying that the experts were saying that it was all going to be melted by 2013. Here is that audio and video.
The third and the fourth and the consistent conclusion, restated with increasing distress, is that something basic is wrong. We are what is wrong, and we must make it right. Last September 21st, as the northern hemisphere tilted away from the sun, scientists reported with unprecedented alarm that the North Polar ice cap is, in their words, falling off a cliff. One study estimated that it could be completely gone during summer in less than 22 years. Another new study, to be presented by U.S. Navy researchers later this week, warns it could happen in as little as 7 years. 7 years from now.
There he is. This is the same Nobel Committee that gave Henry Kissinger an award. Now we're going to go to a break in a moment and come back with David Knight and go to part 2 of my report here. But I'm going to continue the time I have left to break this down. We'll be going about 7 minutes here. All right, now continuing, there is Al Gore. Now this is the rich eugenicists that give Henry Kissinger an award for peace when he's a total warmonger. This is the eugenicists that want to be able to organize a global government around taxing all carbon while ignoring all the serious, real environmental things that are happening. Okay, let's continue. They're the same ones ramming through what Republicans are pushing with Obama right now. Republicans claim enough votes to pass fast-track trade bill, even though it just failed in the Senate. Now, let's continue. This is the same elite that aren't sending humans into space now, that are saying everything will be done by machines in the future, that humans really weren't that good, that they're going to merge with computers. These are human-hating scum. And then we read about the incredible drought in California and other areas, and I've had meteorologists on from California who show the videos and show the Doppler feed of wet weather systems coming in that would normally rain on the state and the whole West Coast. And then these aircraft take off on radar and go and fly in front of it. You can just type in chemtrails and NASA satellite videos, photos, and block the weather systems. And I've had Ben Livingston, the father of weather weapons on when it was declassified a decade ago, admitting that in the 60s they could control and steer and create or kill hurricanes. And his job was to dry out the north of Vietnam and starve them, but flood the central areas where the war was going on. That's all declassified. Meanwhile, they call me a kook and dangerous in Salon for talking about weather modification, the fact that it's a real science now basically perfected, geoengineering. But HAARP itself is able to ignite the atmosphere. It's so powerful. I've had the director of HAARP on the broadcast. Now, let's just continue here. All right, folks, Alex Jones here on this live Sunday Worldwide Edition. We'll be right back with the conclusion of this report and David Knight, who's riding shotgun.
In Austin, we're going to be joined by Paul Joseph Watson from the UK, but before we do, here's the rest of Alex Jones's special report.
Let's just continue here, breaking all of this down. You have all these huge shadow projects going on that are incredibly classified, but the patents on all of these Eastland systems admit, with these Tesla technologies, that it can literally turn the atmosphere into a weapon system. And there is the article attacking me, amongst other things, for saying that there's weather control. all right, now, this, if you're watching us on TV, if you're a radio listener, just search UN Treaty on Weather Weapons, 1978, Convention on Prohibition of military and or hostile use of environmental modification techniques, and it goes through all the signals